Ty Cobb, the greatest hitter who ever lived. Also baseball's biggest villain, or so we've been told. He's known for being racist, violent, perhaps even a murderer. But what if everything you think you know about Ty Cobb is a lie? That's coming up right now. There are three camps of people when it comes to opinions on Ty Cobb. Group 1, most people. They barely knew who he was. They thought he was some irrelevant footnote in baseball history. Group 2, the loudest group, believed he was the cruelest man in baseball, a murderous psychopath who delighted in nothing more than intimidating and injuring his opponents. And then there's Group 3, the skeptics, a small group who didn't buy the one-dimensional monster story that had been concocted about Cobb, but who also couldn't quite poke enough holes in it to completely debunk it. The turning point came after Cobb's death in 1961. Cobb died a rich man at the age of 74. During his career, he'd been fined $1,000 for fighting. Now, what does all this have to do with Ty Cobb? Well, Stump invented a lie about Cobb, saying that Ty Cobb was the one who had injured him in that fight. To make it more dramatic, Stump said he lost his eye because Cobb had spiked him. Now, Stump fed these lies to the media, and Hollywood ate it up. Cobb was already dead, so he couldn't defend himself against these outlandish claims. These claims became part of the lore of the famous film Cobb and Ken Burns' Baseball. Other writers, filmmakers, and biographers repeated the lines without doing any fact-checking of their own. "Nobody liked that son of a bee," said Stump in his book. "He was hated by teammates, managers, opposing players, fans, and even some of the sport's most ardent followers." This statement was not based in fact, but it became gospel because nobody bothered to check it. The public loves a villain. It's far easier to hate a monster than a flawed human being. In 2016, a sports journalist and historian named Charles Learson revisited original sources to tell the real story of Ty Cobb. He pored over boxes of Cobb's letters, game accounts from original newspapers, and even the 1900 census, which listed his family home at 1118 West 23rd Street in Little Rock, Arkansas. There, the family was living with 3 boarders, a cook, and 2 white male servants. His mother's sister Hattie was also there, but there was no one from the South whose skin color was described as black. When you dig through the dirt, the myths built on top of it all crumble. Let's take this idea that Cobb was a racist, for example. Almost every book written about him repeats this claim, but there is no evidence to support it. He answered children's letters, donated money to schools and hospitals, visited Little Rock frequently to see his sick mother, and donated generously to charity. Sure, he could be fiery on the field, but off the field, he was a giver. How can we square that image of the man with the monster image of the man? We can't, because the monster image is false. Let's look at this idea that he kept his spikes extra long and sharp to jab at second baseman. That story also started with Stump. There is no evidence that Cobb did this. His teammates, however, remembered him as having the smoothest slide in the game, a slide he used expertly to get just enough of his hand on the bag. Yeah, he was intimidating, but that doesn't mean he was trying to hurt anybody. So who was Ty Cobb really? Not a saint, certainly not a demon, but a complex man who walked the earth, flawed but brilliant, a man who had a magnificent temper, a gargantuan ego, and whose fists were always up for a brawl, but who also had the psychological genius to steal 927 bases and hit safely almost 4,000 times in the regular season, plus another 600 times in the postseason. He played 2,247 games without ever hitting 1 home run. Ty Cobb was the greatest hitter who ever lived. He was also one of the most maligned, misunderstood, and vilified athletes in American history. And for those reasons, Ty Cobb is the perfect cautionary tale to remind us that sometimes the truth is far more interesting than the lies we tell ourselves. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Thank you for watching.